have you ever heard about Sayyid Ahmad Fardid?
Not yet.
No problem. As I guess, he is not so famous in outside of Iran. And here I'm going to illustrate his thought and influence all over the Iran. And we will see that he is one of the most important thinkers in contemporary Iran. Although maybe we cannot find any book from him, and he didn't write any books, any book. And what about we now is just what his students have written. So we are going to illustrate and explain his life. It is obvious?
Yes.
Yeah. His actual name was Sayyid Ahmad Mahini Yazdi, born in 1289 in the city of Yazd, which located in the central of Iran. And he went to Tehran as a capital of Iran and studied in Tehran through his childhood. He participated in schools based on modern education, which name is Dabirestan. And it is different from what is traditional education in Iran, as we know, and its name is Maktab. So there are two ways of education in the previous period of Iran. One of them was those instituted by government, and its name was Dabistan, and the other was the traditional education, and its name was Maktab. Sayyid Ahmad Fardid participated in the schools, which its name was Dabirestan, and was some modern education in Iran. After studying in these schools, he went to the institute for the preparing teachers for schools, which we say that تربیت معلم بالعربية تربية المعلمين. After that, he turned to study philosophy and tried to learn more and more about the philosophy, especially Western philosophy. Also, he was studying in education branch, but he was interested in philosophy. As you know, there are two branches of philosophy. One branch is that which came from Western countries such as Germany, French, and so. And one branch of philosophy was which we have in Iran by ourselves, such as Mullah Sadra, Avicenna, Ibn Sina, Farabius, and so on. Sayyid Ahmad Fardid, after learning some philosophy from Western countries, began to study about the traditional philosophy, Islamic philosophy in Iran. And he liked to compare these two branches together, to compare and find out the common points and the differences and so on. It's clear?
Yes, still clear.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Yeah.
After that, he tried to go abroad to learn more and more about the philosophy. So he went to Paris, French, and in the Sorbonne University began to write and study Western philosophy in the period of PhD in philosophy in Sorbonne University. He studied and studied until he came to the writing part of thesis, writing thesis in the PhD period. So after he find his own subject matter for PhD thesis, he began to be familiar with one of the most influential thinker of the West. His name was Martin Heidegger. You have heard about Martin Heidegger, isn't it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Fardi was thinking that Martin Heidegger has ideas very good and very important about the society and even about the human being. So he tried to learn from Heidegger more and more. And because of this, he went from Paris to Heidelberg. Heidelberg is that city which Heidegger was teaching at that city. And therefore, Fardid became more familiar with Heidegger's ideas, Heidegger's thought, and tried to learn from Heidegger himself. After learning philosophy, especially the philosophy of Martin Heidegger, he came back to Iran. After coming back to Iran, the Tehran University invited him to study philosophy in Tehran University. And Dr. Fardid accepted this invitation and went to Tehran University and began to teach philosophy for students of Tehran University. But the students figured out that this man knows many details about Heidegger's thought, and it is better to learn from Fardid more and more. But the structure of university didn't let him to learn more from Fardid, because you know that university structure is so that you must learn just 40 session in some matters and pass the subject and to go to the other subject and pay 14 session and so on. And you cannot centralize on one subject and study it day and day, daily. So his students asked him to make some meeting outside the university. And Mr. Fardit began to teach Western philosophy in some meetings outside the university. And this meeting is very important because in this meeting, there are many thinkers and writers participated in the meeting, and they by themselves became most influential thinkers in Iran. And Mr. Fardit began to influence in Iran through his students. And nowadays, when I'm talking to you, Mr. Fardit's students are influential in Iran. And they write books, they write articles, they give lectures about the issues which Mr. Fardit has talked about. So we are going to now what Mr. Fardit bring from Western societies to Iran and what we have from him here. It is obvious, no question?
Not yet, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Fardit took Heidegger from West culture and took Ibn Arabi's ideas from Islamic culture and combined these two thoughts together and make something different from Ibn Arabi's and Heidegger's, which are suitable to Iran's society. But what Mr. Fardit bring from Heidegger? You know that Martin Heidegger paid attention to the existence. But he wants to say that what I am going to speak about existence is different from all philosophers before me talk about existence. I am going to give you something new. But what is this new subject about existence which Martin Heidegger wants to bring us? He said that when I speak about existence, it is not plural. I don't speak about existences, just one existence, which is the existence which no border is about him. It is absolute, and no one can know the absolute existence exactly. So if we cannot know about the absolute existence, how can we find anything about it? Martin Heidegger says that we have one way, and the special way toward the absolute existence. What is the special way to existence? It is design. But what Heidegger means by design? Design is the existence which is here in front of us, and this existence is somehow human. And Martin Heidegger referred to human by the word Dasein. Dasein is something which wants to show us the absolute existence, but we don't know about the absolute existence, so we must know the absolute existence through Dasein. Up to here, Martin Heidegger tries to show us that the philosopher must centerize on Dasein to know its characteristics and to know more about Dasein, because they want to know about absolute existence. But you know, Dasein is existence. Existence means that something which is brought from outside in this world. As the word existence refers, ex means outside, stance means being here. So existence together means something which comes from outside to here in front of us. So Dasein is existence. But if Dasein is existence, how he could refer to the absolute existence? Heidegger believes that the absolute existence has showed himself in Dasein. So any characteristics in Dasein would refer to the characteristic of absolute Dasein, the absolute existence. So Dasein tries to know absolute existence better and better. Martin Heidegger gives an analogy. The analogy is that you know the jungle, yeah? Jungle, I mean the place which there are many trees. But we have two kinds of jungle. One kind is the jungle which people go to eat and come back, and there would be a road in the jungle. Behind in the middle of the jungle, we see a road. But the second kind of jungle is the jungle which nobody went there. No human beings went to that jungle. And when you enter this jungle, you cannot find any road, any way. What is the differences between these two jungles? The first one, when you enter the jungle, you can see the end of the road. You can see the end of the road. You see, and would understand that this road goes, and will go to that point. But in the second jungle, you cannot see but your footsteps, but your place. Also, you want go in front of when where you have studied state, you must find a place to put your leg, to put your feet there. Heidegger says that this kind of jungle shows us that there are two kinds of jungle. The jungle which is unknown for every person, but the other is the jungle which some people went there and knows that jungle and speak about the road in the jungle. Martin Heidegger brings this analogy to illustrate this fact that for human being in this world, he must go, and by the step he makes, he would know something little about the absolute being. He wouldn't know all about the absolute being, absolute existence. He just by the time tries to know about the absolute existence. It is our story. We are human. We want to know about God, but we don't know about God very much. We just know in the time we live it. After it, we begin another time, another period, and know more about God. And so, all knowledge about God would expert and be more and more. So Martin Heidegger wants to say that for human being to know about God, it is important to obtain what absolute existence give him. As we refer to in Arabic term, tajalliyat. We must bring and take the tajalliyat of absolute existence. What I have said here was about Martin Heidegger. And in short, we can say that Martin Heidegger says that for human beings, there is just one main question. The main question is about the question of existence. And you know, he wants to say that the question of absolute existence. But what we can say about Ibn Arabi? Ibn Arabi is very similar to Martin Heidegger from Ahmad Fardi's point of view. Ahmad Fardi says that Ibn Arabi and Martin Heidegger is very close together. And I am here to explain the Ibn Arabi's idea. He says that the subject matter of Irfan, mysticism, is the absolute being. So for Ibn Arabi, the absolute being is very important too. But Ibn Arabi continues saying we cannot know about the absolute being because it has no had no rasm. There isn't any had and rasm. لا حد له ولا رسم. And we must know the absolute being from point of view, the complete human being, إنسان كامل, الإنسان الكامل. So for Ibn Arabi, the best way to know God is that of the complete human being. Ibn Arabi thinks that human being has one main request. His request is to see the absolute being. رؤية قلب رؤية الله. So Ibn Arabi says that the human being has its own way toward God. قوس الصعود and قوس النزول. قوس النزول and قوس الصعود is one of the main idea for Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi says that the characteristics of God can be seen in the characteristics of the complete human being. So for Ibn Arabi, إنسان كامل is the mir'atullah, mirror which we can see God in it. So we are here to compare Ibn Arabi and Heidegger. Both of them said that the absolute being cannot be known completely. Both of them says that the complete human being or design is the good way for knowing God. And both of them says that human being and design are historical. It means that God through time shows himself in the human being. In other words, and in Arabic, Allah يتجلي على الإنسان في طول الزمن والتاريخ. So we can say that for Fardid, Heidegger, and Ibn Arabi are two good figures and two good personalities which can show us the way for human being in the society. Both of them says that we must centralize on human being to know God better and better. After saying these words, Dr. Said Ahmed Fardid himself says that I'm here to teach Heidegger upon the Islamic foundations. So he himself says that Heidegger must be known through Islamic foundations, and he means that I, Mr. Fardid, bring you Islamization Heidegger, know the Western Heidegger as the Western people, Western thinkers now. After that, Fardid tries to solve the problem. Here we are in Iran upon what he has said about Heidegger and Ibn Arabi. So is there any question?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Okay, thank you very much. What I want to know is how far how many how far the influence of Western philosophy is among the Iranian scholars, and someone like who had, what who had we know like Shariati, and then today, and who else Iranian philosopher or Iranian scholar who had very much influenced by the Western philosophy. Thank you.
Yeah. You know that there is a very big difference between Shariati and Fardit. Why? Because Shariati tried to speak about Islamic South in front of ordinary people, in front of the majority of people. And he tried to make relationship with common people, al-jumhur. But Dr. Ahmed Fardid just made relationship to academic people, academic writers. And you know that many people in Iran don't know about Heidegger. Many people in Iran don't know anything about Ibn Arabi. And Dr. Fardid centralized on Heidegger and Ibn Arabi, which are not familiar to common people. By contrast, Dr. Shariati centralized on Islamic personalities such as Abu Zar al-Ghifari, centralized on people personalities such as Fatima bint Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so on. These people are most familiar for any person in Iran. So we can say that there are differences between Shariati and Fardid. One of them is that Fardid didn't make relationship to common people, to ordinary people, but Shariati made relationship to many people in any valley, in any city of Iran. Everybody knows Shariati, but maybe in Tehran, there are many people don't know about Fardid. So how I told you that Fardid is influential? Because he has influenced on academic people. And in many university, when you go, you can see the influential of Fardid. So up to now, I want to say that although there are differences between Fardid and Shariati, but we can say that both of them are the influential thinkers in contemporary Iran. And one of them, Shariati, was influenced by Jean-Paul Sartre. The other, Said Ahmed Fardi, was influenced by Martin Heidegger. But I think that no one of them, none Heidegger, none Sartre, are not suitable for Iranian society. Why? Because Jean-Paul Sartre is somebody atheistic. And you know, if somebody was atheistic, it cannot make relationship with Islamic thought. And this was Shariati's doing. He wanted to make Sartre as a good paradigm for Iranian people. In the other side, Fardid tried to make Heidegger as a good pattern, good paradigm for Iranian people, but he couldn't, because Heidegger is somehow phenomenological. And you know, there are many differences between phenomenology and Islamic thought. And we cannot bring these two together. Yes, I know that Fardid make his best to combine these two ideas, but I think that Fardid, instead of knowing the main difference between Ibn Arabi and Heidegger, he just centralized on the face and searched the something which is common between two thinkers. What is common between these two thinkers is just emphasizing on human being, emphasizing on absolute being, but there are many differences. When Heidegger speaks about design, he wants to say that design can just obtain phenomena of absolute being. But for Ibn Arabi, when al-insanul kamil, the complete human being, tries to know God, he goes قاب قوسين أو أدنى. So we can say that there is a big difference between قاب قوسين and what Heidegger says about phenomena. And this is one of the mistakes which Said Ahmad Fardi did, and his students did so. But I'm here to speak about Fardi because he was, also we cannot accept it, he was influential Iranian thinker. One of his influence was that Mr. Fardi was participated in the political actions. He illustrated Shah as a good person. And this is very bad in Iranian society. Iranian society was against Shah, and he illustrated Shah as a good person. After the revolution, Mr. Fardi began to illustrate Imam Khomeini as a good person. And this is very bad. Before revolution, you say that Shah is good. After revolution, you say that Imam Khomeini is good. So what is your own idea? What is your main idea? Do you want to for Islam to be the Islamic rule in Iran, or you want Shah to be continuing Iran? But Shariati is different from this point of view. Shariati was against the Shah before revolution and after revolution. So maybe people saw the truth in Shariati's behavior, which cannot be seen in Fardid's behavior. So even Fardi was very influential in the beginning, began to go away and left Dr. Fardid alone. So up to here, I illustrated that we have two thinkers, one of them Shariati, the other was Fardid. And Shariati was influential, Fardid was influential too, but Shariati was most influential because Shariati saw that in Iranian society, there are some tendencies toward the left group in politics. And he uses some ideas from the left in his writings. But Fardid was against the left. And this made him some who not acceptable in Iranian society. So we know that Shariati has written many books. He had many speeches, and his speeches were very influential. But we cannot see even one book from Fardid. All of Fardid is what came to us through his students, through his followers. And what I can say here for you is something obtained from Fardid students. So up to now, if there is question, I am at your service. And if there isn't any question, I will continue.
Miss Liz, Fatima has questions in chat room, sir.
Yeah, please.
Bulis, silakan Bulis.
I wrote it in chat room, sir.
I didn't hear your question.
Okay.
I read your question. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that here in Iran there are many universities. Yeah. Most of this university began to illustrated Heidegger's idea. And many teachers in the university, even, for example, University of Tehran, Allame Tabatabai, and others, wants Heidegger to be to be expanded in Iran. This is one of the influential works of Fardid. And nowadays, we see that many students in university wants to know more about Heidegger. And there isn't such a tendency in the Iranian society. It's just in the university. And they want to write about Heidegger, to speak about Heidegger in newspapers, in magazines, even in TV. We saw speeches, meetings about Heidegger. And when we seek the root of these tendencies in the universities, we find somebody whose name is Said Ahmad Fardid.
After Imam Khomeini's after Iran have revolutions, I think that Imam Khomeini is very familiar with Ibn Arabi's idea about Wahdatul Wujud, and of course, he know lots about the Mullah Sadra thought too. I think that's two of Islamic scholar, Ibn Arabi and Mullah Sadra is really close in Wahdatul Wujud ideas. And what do you think about these Fardis and Imam Khomeini? Is there any relation with the ideas of both of them?
Yeah, you know that Imam Khomeini was teaching Ibn Arabi's work before the revolution. After the revolution, when he came to Iran, Said Ahmad Fardi now knows that Imam Khomeini was teaching Ibn Arabi. This was interested Ahmad Fardi in Imam Khomeini. And he said that Imam Khomeini is a very big human, very big influential human being, because he wants to spread Ibn Arabi thought in Iran. And we saw that Said Ahmed Fardi says that Imam Khomeini is the very good person. Before revolution, he wasn't saying anything about Imam Khomeini, but after revolution, when he introduced to Imam Khomeini, he began to say that Imam Khomeini is a good person. So the common characteristic between Said Ahmed Fardi and Imam Khomeini is the ideas of Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi is very good thinkers. Yeah, I know, I believe. But the criticizing of the criticizing point of view we are here illustrating is that there isn't any common characteristic between Ibn Arabi and Heidegger. These are not the same, and this is the mistake Mr. Fardit have made. Yeah, you know that Heidegger is phenomenological people. He's a Kantian thinker, but no relation between Ibn Arabi and Kant, and even about the Descartes and other Western thinkers.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, sir. I wonder
Yeah.
what is the idea of Jafardi's thoughts when he called it Imam Khomeini is a good people. What is the idea of Jafardis?
You know that in the Imam Khomeini's thought, the complete human being, al-insanul kamil, is very important. And al-insanul kamil يستطيع أن يعرفنا الله. So when Imam Khomeini says that the complete human being is the good way for knowing God, Ahmad Fardi sees that this idea is very good. But why? Because it came from Ibn Arabi or from Imam Khomeini? No, because Ahmad Fardi saw that this idea is the same with Heidegger's idea. So for Ahmad Fardi, the main point is Martin Heidegger. His goal is to illustrate Heidegger for Iranian academics.
Okay.
But I think that Western thinkers are not suitable for Iranian society, for solving Iranian problems, because there are differences. Heidegger was in the period in the Europe, many people has been died through Second World War, and human being in Europe was not hasn't any good thought to rely on. So Heidegger tried to bring some foundations for European people. But here in Iran, we have faced with different problem, different situation. In Iran, people want Islamic rule in Iran, but for Heidegger, religious rule is not a problem. So his ideas are for European people, especially for German people, because Heidegger tries to give a good illustration of Hitler. But in Iran, there are many differences between our problem and the German problems, German people problems. Yeah.
You mean that it is not suitable for Iranian?
Yeah. Also,
and
Jean
Fardis
Paul.
want to promote and Fardis want to promote the Heidegger thought for Iranian.
Yeah.
Okay,
But you know that in any society, when the people want to solve their problem, they must go back to their own tradition. The tradition is the basis of their culture. We cannot solve the cultural problem from bringing other ideas from other cultures to solve our problem. And this mistake has been made by Said Ahmed Fardi as well as Dr. Shariati, because Shariati thought that the idea of Jean-Paul Sartre would solve our problem. Yes, Jean-Paul Sartre ideas, some who is good. Even Heidegger's idea is in some level good, but there is differences between being good idea and being solving idea, solving our problem. So here we are going to speak about Fardi, and I have referred that he hasn't any good books and even any articles upon which I am going to illustrate. And I have relate just on the ideas through his students, through his followers, to speak about Said Ahmed Fardi here. So no problem, no question.
No, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that if you let me left the end of our discussion for the next session, because I think that if there would be some students who translate the idea, it's better. If you don't mind, we left the end of our discussion for the next session. No problem?
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, please.
Yeah. So have a good time, and I will see you in the next session next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Ada yang nemu bukunya? Saya nemu ini.
Ustadz Hafid.
Susah sekali.
Ada ya?
Ahmad
Fardi.
Ada, Bu. Cek tak kirim, Bu. Tapi yang nulis orang lain, Bu, tentang dia.
Oh, bukan tulisannya langsung ya?
Tapi bukan, enggak ada toh. Tadi kan dijelaskan memang susah. Tapi tentang pemikiran detail, maksudnya tentang transnasionalismenya dia.
Dikirim
Tapi
aja Mas.
menjelaskan lah Bu sedikit-sedikit. Udah.
Udah.
Namanya kan siapa sih? Mahjah Yazdi.
Syed Ahmad Fardi.
Itu tentang Ardit.
Syed
Tapi
Ahmad
nama
Fardi.
aslinya tadi itu,
Hah?
oh iya, nama aslinya itu Mahjan Yazid apa ya? Saya tadi kan searching, susah Syed Ahmad Fardi. Terus siapa sih nama asli, nama lahirnya itu? Yazdi. Apa tadi lupa saya.
Ada di grup ya?
Sudah saya kirim. Ahmad Fardi, Ahmad Mahini Yazdi.
Saya izin live ya. Thank you. See you.
Ya Pak. Siap. Saya juga izin live.
Makasih ya. Mas Saru, Mas Arif, selamat berlibur.